Hello and welcome to your astrological forecast for April 2023. And if you like the video that you're about to see, then press the like button. And more importantly, if you like the channel, then be a subscriber. Press the subscribe button. It all helps to put this astrological aspect out there for everyone to find out what's going on. And I suppose that's a good question to sort of start with. What's going on? Well, so this is going to be an interesting month coming up. There's a few things that have started to shift, and that's been from March period. Of course, Saturn at the beginning of March went into Pisces. We had at the end of March Mars moving from Gemini into Cancer. And now we've also had Pluto move into Aquarius. That's a big one. So what I tend to find is that when you have these planets sort of shifting, and they've been in previous zodiac signs for a long period of time, particularly with Saturn and particularly with Pluto, then it's not straight away that you sort of sense that we'll see the changes externally, but there's a sort of an internal collective kind of shift that goes on that makes things kind of very okay, something has changed, something has shifted, or different perspectives start to come up to the surface in how people are thinking and feeling about future from an individual perspective and, of course, collectively. And so when we go into April, we will start to see that begin to manifest much more externally in people's behavior, decisions, and responses to situations that come up. That can be, again, from an individual level to, politically, economically. So the shifting of sands has happened, and April, I think, what that brings in is that becoming much more apparent to us all. That, oh, right, okay, the old fears, the old way of doing things is now not applicable as it once was. And what you tend to find is that things move very, very quickly, suddenly, and it's whether we can kind of keep up with that kind of energy. So, looking at April, the first thing that we experience here is Mercury on the 3rd of April moves into Taurus, and Mercury's a player this month because it's going to go retrograde. And so we're really going to keep an eye on the energy of Mercury and what's going on now in Taurus. I wouldn't say that it was a union that was blessed with much. Taurus as a zodiac sign is quite stodgy and stubborn and fixed and earthy, and the rather expressive, exuberant, trickster energy of Mercury doesn't bode well with the bull. So immediately we have a little bit of a conflict there. So people sticking to the principles, sticking to their old views, the old ways of doing stuff. This is how we've done it before, and this is how we're going to continue. It's that kind of energy that's circulating around with Mercury in Taurus. And then on the 6th, we've got a full moon in Libra. That's 16 degrees in Libra, and that's very early in the morning, 5:34 GMT time. And it's a kind of interesting full moon, because when the full moon goes in Libra is a sign of relationships, partnerships, diplomacy, shared resources in a way as well, some legal matters. So we expect those to become at the forefront from a political, economic point of view, perhaps news and stuff like that, particularly the idea of partnerships and how that manifests. So that's a really kind of interesting period here. And it's always the 2 days before the full moon and the 2 days after that can be really difficult. On the 11th, Venus will enter into Gemini, which is nice and playful, and that's quite a shift from the Taurus, although Venus is in its rulership in Taurus, so it's very, very happy. It makes it a bit lighter, and that kind of gets things kind of moving socially as well. So people want to actually get together with Venus in Gemini, and be much more social, much more active, participating in things. So that can be quite good for events, or marketing events and stuff like that. Could be really, really good. And then we've got major. This is when it all in the middle of sort of April. So on the 20th of April, we've got a new moon, which is a total solar eclipse. Now, this is at 29 degrees, critical degrees in Aries. And this is at around about 5:16, 17 in the morning, GMT time. And it's that critical degree that is so important. So solar eclipse here. So we've had a lot of the eclipses recently in Taurus and Scorpio, and that continues. The next lunar eclipse is on the 5th of May. But this is the first solar eclipse. And it's interesting that day because on that day, following on from that, the sun also enters into, of course, Taurus because of the critical degree. Now, critical degree is like an emphasis or a magnified version of the zodiac sign it is inhabiting. So if you look at the Aryan energy of, conquering, being decisive, impulsive, fiery by nature, and brave, those are some of the themes that really kind of play out here. And this is extra amplified by, of course, the total solar eclipse. So if you've got planets at sort of 27 to 29 degrees in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, particularly your sun and your moon in those degrees, then you are going to be really kind of affected by this solar eclipse. So, as I said, eclipses magnify. They tend to have a lifespan of about 6 months. And so it's not that day that will be dramatic. I don't, being an astrologer, many times have I spoken to clients and it's that day that something significant has happened and then it's played out over the next 6 months. So that does happen. But I think more importantly, it's a time that of endings because of that 29 degree, something coming to an end and something about to begin. So it's really a very powerful, new moon. And I think the moon in Aries is a little bit turbulent as well. So it's not an easy energetically new moon to deal with. So that's on the 20th of April. So that's really kind of significant. And then on the 21st in the morning, about 9:30, Mercury goes retrograde in Taurus. So we've kind of got this solar eclipse, and then immediately afterwards we've got Mercury going retrograde. And we all know about Mercury retrograde. I've always said that it depends at what sort of time that Mercury is going to go retrograde. Well, in terms of degree and stuff like that. Well, it's a very interesting one because it actually goes retrograde at sort of 15 degrees, which means that it's making a conjunction by 2 degrees to Uranus in Taurus. So it sort of leads up to about to make a conjunction with Uranus in Taurus, and then but before it does that, it goes retrograde. So we've got the Uranus factor in there, which adds an unpredictability to it here significantly. And I find this kind of an interesting kind of period in time. These dates of the 18th of April to around about the 24th of April. I think these are really interesting because of that solar eclipse, because of that Mercury retrograde. How's that going to actually play out? Well, I actually think of, first of all, political uncertainty, in the Western world. That would be the first kind of things. What we seemingly thought we were moving forward are not. And I particularly emphasize the economic aspect of things here. Like I said, 29 degrees, critical degrees, always represents something coming to an end, something magnified, particularly. And this is also a bridge to Pluto going into Aquarius, that I feel is also, it's not totally going to be traveling to Aquarius now. It goes back into Capricorn and, then goes back into Aquarius next year and then goes back into Capricorn. So we're in this sort of back and forth kind of mode with Pluto. but it's kind of heralding a new time. But we need to clear up the debris, of what's been and gone. So it's like, the party's coming to an end, and we just got to clear it all up before we can really start anew fresh, a bit like that. So that will be the kind of the energy. But there'll be some individuals in power that want the party to go on and don't want to leave. So you've got that to contend with. So that's why it's a little bit of a turbulent time. I'm not suggesting that this is kind of like a revolutionary kind of aspect, because this is in Taurus, this Mercury retrograde. And if you look at the sun, it's about to go into Taurus in on the solar eclipse. So Taurus is fixed. So fixed views, fixed things. But it definitely kind of feels like a shift that's happening here, and quite a significant shift that's taking place. The only Mercury is the only planet that is actually going retrograde. That's halfway through the month. The rest of the planets are moving forward. So this is kind of like, oh, okay, things are moving forward, but we got this Mercury retrograde to contend with, and I think that's really kind of important, And if you know your perfections, then if you're in a Jupiter or a Saturn perfection, then things are moving very fast. The key also is Mars being, in Cancer now. It starts at 3 degrees the 1st of April. So it's still in that relatively the first early degrees of Cancer. So, Mars is in its fall in Cancer, so it's not comfortable. And we've had, Mars in Gemini since August the 20th of last year. So, it's a new different energy. But, with Mars in Cancer, it can be a little bit passive aggressive from a collective level, and a bit difficult for people to handle emotional stuff, particularly to do with family or old emotions, can really come up to the surface. So it's not comfortable, Mars. It doesn't really know how to respond and to react to the energy of that assertiveness through the zodiac sign of Cancer. So I would expect conflict from a political level to be particularly about homes, family, what we call home, and just the property market in general to be a bit turbulent during this period. We know about Venus going from Taurus into Gemini. Neptune's moving forward in Pisces, and Pluto, of course, is now very early degrees in Aquarius, and we're all sort of waiting to see how that plays out, just to give us a little bit of a taster. But this all builds up to May. May's a big month. One of the biggest months of the year is May, and I will obviously talk about it in my May video. But there is a kind of a sense of, right, okay, things are shifting quite fast. And that middle part of April is going to be a little bit like being on a roller coaster for a lot of us before we know how to get off it. But the good news is, of course, the planets are moving forward apart from Mercury, and therefore, yeah, okay, a little bit of turbulence, but you know what? There are things that are changing. There is something coming out of all of this, and how it forms and how tangible it can be at this stage. Well, that's highly unlikely at the moment, but there's seeds of ideas of change that are coming in that will be important for the next 20 years. And that's the way to kind of look at this particular period. This is not the end result. It is the sort of beginning. And some of those ideas will feel out of step or not clear at this stage, but they will end up being, and clarity will come forward, but it's not for a little bit of time here as well. So we're in that slightly transitional period, and we've probably felt that for a long time actually, but this feels a bit different. It feels a bit like the unknown, and therefore when we're in the unknown state, we get fearful and we go, oh God, I don't know where this is going. But actually, things are changing, things are shifting quite a bit. And when planets do move, like Saturn and like Pluto, and even like Mars, when they do move, and which they just have done, the foundations begin to shake. And then we've got to respond to that and go, okay, how secure do I feel? Am I making the right choices at the moment? You know, and that strong word that always comes through survival will be a big, big word that will come up to a lot of people's consciousness at the moment. So yeah, lot to play out. Well, that's me done for April. Please like the video and, like I say, become a subscriber and have a fabulous April. And I shall see you all for May. But until then, thank you very much for watching.